My name is John Passfield. I'm going to read from my novel, Pauline Johnson, Know Who I Am. The title of this reading will be Pauline Johnson, Video 14, Pauline's Poems, Part 2. Here's the cover of the novel, Pauline Johnson, Know Who I Am. Photograph of Pauline Johnson in 1912, a year before her death, a novel by John Passfield. The summary on the back of the novel, on the back cover, Pauline Johnson was born on the Six Nations Reserve in Ontario, Canada. Was she American, British, or Canadian? Was she Mohawk, English, or mixed? She added up her assets and liabilities and decided that the Pauline that the world would see would be Pauline, a performance artist, Pauline on stage. As for the real Pauline, she would keep that to herself. Now, my premise in this novel is that the poems of the historical Pauline Johnson are also the poems of the fictional Pauline Johnson. I employed the poems of the historical Pauline Johnson in this novel in a number of ways. One of those ways is by interlayering one-line images from her poems as comments on the non-poem images of her life. So you might say the biographical images of her life, commented on by her poetry, but only by single lines from her poetry. I will pick out single lines from the poems of the main character, which she employs in this way, as comments on the other imagery of her life. There are 8 such single-line image references in each chapter. Well, here are the single-line images from Chapter 3 of the text of the novel. So let's go to page 19 of the novel, which is the beginning of Chapter 3. Here we are. So every so often, separating images, a single line, a line from a poem. Would that my heart would comfort you. That's the first one. The second one, a page later, of imagery. But pure my soul, pure as those stars on high. Now that's commenting on imagery that I'm not reading. A third one, a page later. I am lost upon the plains. A fourth one, a page further down. The words outleapt from her shrunken lips. On a couple of pages later, there's a spirit on the river. Each of these one-line images commenting on images that I'm not reading, but are in the mind of the main character. Never a fear my craft will feel. Another one, I thought my blessings scant. And then a final one for this chapter, Chapter 3. If I had thought of all the stormy days. Now, each of these single-line images is from a poem by Pauline Johnson. So each single-line thought has a whole poem of thought behind it. If we pick this line from page 24, which I read a moment ago, never a fear my craft will feel, we can read the complete poem from which it comes, in Flint and Feather. So it's the song my paddle sings, and it's on page 31 of this book, Flint and Feather, the complete poems of Pauline Johnson. So let me just find page 31 here, and I'll read the poem. So a single line evoking a whole poem, not the whole poem printed in the novel, but a single line printed, which evokes the whole poem. Why? Because it's in the mind of the character, Pauline Johnson, as she's thinking about her whole life. West wind, blow from your prairie nest, blow from the mountains, blow from the west. The sail is idle, the sailor too. O wind of the west, we wait for you. Blow, blow. I have wooed you so, but never a favor you bestow. You rock your cradle, the hills between, but scorn to notice my white lateen. I stow the sail, unshipped the mast, I wooed you long, but my wooing's past, my paddle will lull you into rest. O drowsy wind of the drowsy west, sleep, sleep. by your mountain steep, or down where the prairie grasses sweep, now fold in slumber your laggard wings, for soft is the song my paddle sings. August is laughing across the sky, laughing while paddle, canoe, and I drift, where the hills uplift on either side of the current swift. The river rolls in its rocky bed, my paddle is plying its way ahead. Dip, while the waters flip and foam as over their breast we slip. And oh, the river runs swifter now, the eddies circle about my bow. Swirl, how the ripples curl in many a dangerous pool a-whirl. And forward far the rapids roar, fretting their margin forevermore. Dash, with a mighty crash they seethe and boil and bound and splash. Be strong, O paddle, be brave, canoe, the reckless waves you must plunge into. Reel, on your trembling keel, but never a fear my craft will feel. That's the line I read earlier. We've raced the rapid, we're far ahead, the river slips through its silent bed. Sway, as the bubbles spray and fall in tinkling tunes away. And up on the hills, against the sky, a fir tree rocking its lullaby swings, its emerald wings swelling the song that my paddle sings. Well, that's the poem. Similarly, we can read the 8 single-line images from Chapter 7. I'm picking these 2 chapters at random. All 16 chapters have this same configuration, single-line images commenting on other images. So let's look at Chapter 7 of the text. That's on page 51. So I'll read all 8 images in Chapter 7, if I can find 51 here. Here we are. So the first one is, will reawaken all my depths of pain. That's from a whole poem, but only one image occurs to her as she thinks of other images about her life. Another one, still he dances to death's awful brink. Another image, you have stolen my father's spirit. A fourth image, but forgetting all, she follows. A fifth image, but self-encrusted I had failed to see. Another one, I may not all your meaning understand. I may not all your meaning understand. Interesting. Different ways to say that one. And life still lacks nothing so complete, it seems. And the final one in this chapter, and all is still at last. Well, those are 8 images from Chapter 7. If we select this line from page 56 of a novel, I may not all your meaning understand. I may not all your meaning understand. We can read the complete poem from which it is being taken, as found on page 43 of Flint and Feather. And the poem is called Moonset. So let's have a look at page 43. Okay. Here's Moonset then. A poem by the historical Pauline Johnson, thought of, at least one line, every so often, by the fictional Pauline Johnson as commentary on the images about her life. Idles the night wind through the dreaming firs, the waking murmur low, as some lost melody, returning, stirs the love of long ago. And through the far cool distance, zephyr fan, the moon is sinking into shadowland. The troubled night bird, calling plaintively, wanders on restless wing. The cedars chanting vespers to the sea await its answering. Then comes, in wash of waves along the strand, the while the moon slips into shadowlands. Oh, soft responsive voices of the night, I join your minstrelsy and call across the fading silver light as something calls to me. I may not all your meaning understand. I may not all your meaning understand, but I have touched your soul in Shadowland. So that's another poem that is evoked by only one line, and it is in the mind of the fictional Pauline Johnson, because she wrote that poem, as she wrote all of her poems. The poems of the historical Pauline Johnson, and therefore of the fictional Pauline Johnson, are many and varied. When she turns the information of her life experience into imagery, she finds herself commenting on that imagery, modifying that imagery, agreeing with that imagery, or disputing that imagery with the imagery of the poetry that she has written over the years in which she has lived that life experience. This technique of including a one-line image which evokes an entire poem is a means of allowing the reader to follow the main character, Pauline Johnson, as she dives deeply into the imagery of her mind. It is an experience that requires an active reader. I hope that readers will be willing to follow the main character, Pauline Johnson, in her quest to access the deepest levels of the self. Now, the book, as I said earlier, is Pauline Johnson, Know Who I Am, a novel by John Passfield. It's available on Amazon. There's more information there. My publisher's website is Rocksmills Press, rocksmillspress.com, rocksmills.com. There's information there about the novel. And my website is johnpassfield.ca, johnpassfield.ca. 2 books for free access. One's a planning notebook in which I show you, because I was explaining to myself how I worked my way through the writing process. The other's a journal in which I assess the novel now that I have a rough draft and I'm polishing it. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, how a novel evolves as one works on it, have a look at johnpassfield.ca. Lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.